Cities are defined by their cultures. Those cultures could entail sports or business or certainly arts and entertainment. Oklahoma City is thriving in all of these areas, but who makes that all happen? This Town OKC explores the people behind the cultures, their origins, their motivations, their challenges, and their dreams. I'm Rick Allen Lippert. I've been in this town for over 50 years with a front row seat to seeing the culture grow from a dusty bus stop on the Southern Plains to a flourishing destination. Join me as we meet the folks behind the culture on This Town OKC. Lucas Ross, what a joy it is to see you across the table from me.
Rick, thank you for seeing me across your table. A lot of times people don't look. They see me and they're just like, they're staring down. They'll sit beside me so they don't have to look at my face. So it's really an honor. And I'm kind of on the spot. I feel like I need to do like magic tricks or something over here.
No, okay. It's audio only. So,
okay.
So actually you can do all the magic tricks.
Yeah, pretend I'm doing something really amazing right now. For the
right,
listeners at home, I'm making it look like I pulled my thumb off. The trick is it's not my own thumb. So figure that out.
I really don't know when I first met you or encountered you, but I know that we've known each other I do know the first time I ever talked to you, you were one of the two movie guys and it was at Dead Center and you and Ryan were at a table in the lobby of the museum.
Was that the first time that
I think it was
talked?
The first time we talked.
Sounds about right. So that's going on. Man, we started doing that local little comedy sketch. I don't even know. It wasn't exactly a show. It was time filler, I think.
Yeah. And I would say comedy that term is loose.
We were time fillers. We weren't movie reviewers. That's what I would tell people. They'd be like, oh, you guys review movies? And we're like, no. We don't even watch the ones that we review because that'd make us biased. Well, I'm glad. But we've crossed paths a lot of ways. And I've worked with different people in your circle, your family, your group.
Right. Our daughter, Erin, has Alley Dog Depot. And You've done a lot of work for that. We'll get to that in a little bit. We'll get to the Banjo Museum. We'll get to Channel 4. But this is an oral history. Here's what I know about your history.
Okay.
What I think I know. Minco and beekeeping.
That's pretty close. Yeah, that's it.
Okay. Elaborate.
I'm from Minco. My dad is a beekeeper. So... All right. Thanks for listening, everybody. And now can I do my timeshare opportunity? I always ask first. Yeah, I'm from Minco, Oklahoma. And my dad he's the second generation to step into the beekeeping of Minco. My grandfather, my mom's dad, started the business. Actually, in Oklahoma City, it was with a bottling company. And then after the war, he saw potential to actually make honey. So he saw a lot of cotton farms, a lot of crops being planted around a little town called Minco, and he moved there and built a little honey plant, and he and my grandma lived there for a while until they could save enough to build a house, and they became the beekeepers there. And then my mom met my dad in college, and they inherited the business later, and they're still selling honey to this day. We just had the, 35th or 36th or 32nd, I don't know how many honey festival. They do the honey festival every year, and so we were just down there for that. My dad always talks about, he's like, you sure seem to claim being a beekeeper a lot more now than you ever wanted to growing up. He said, you never worked? I was like, no, I hated it. I was a brat about going into the bee yards. I was like, I'm an artist, Dad. I'm an artist. He's like, well, not yet. Put on the veil and get your smoker. We're going to go work the bee. And I treasure those days, and I look back on it, and I was still like freaked out, and I don't think it's enough. It's not sentiment enough to make me think that I want to go back and do it. There's times though. I'll talk with my brother every once in a while whenever you're, in the arts and you're up and you're down, and it's in a down valley, or just like tired of the race of it all. And I'm just like, man, what if we just moved to Minco and did the honey thing? And then, fortunately, I'm always at a peak when he's in a valley, and vice versa.
Okay.
Because if we ever line up, we might make a really, and we'll not have told our wives about this idea either. But there's a lot of sentiment in there, and there's something magical. I think there's something say magical or spiritual or really deep. I do believe with bees, there's such a mystery to it and how they're able to create this nectar of the gods, this honey
Sure.
that it doesn't mold, it doesn't go bad, it doesn't hold any bacteria. They found it in the Egyptian tombs and it was probably solidified and sugared, but they could melt it down and still eat it. And so there's something really interesting about that. And so it's been so cool to watch my dad, who's not just a beekeeper in our town. He's a kind of a minister to all in that town. He works with the church there, but is just kind of known. I don't know. I think of him kind of like Andy Griffith of a Mayberry. He's like everybody's guy.
Yeah.
And he knows who's struggling. He knows who needs anything. And he's also the guy that people know, oh, if you need this, you need to contact this family. So I grew up with a lot of that. People in and out of our house of all different kind of walks of life. And I was fortunate to have a really good example in a really small town of inclusivity and love and outreach. And there's a lot of good in that. There's a lot of good in that town. So I'm proud. I'm proud to be a Minco kid. I still feel like I'm from there, even though I haven't lived there for, I don't know, probably more
Your
of my
entire
life
adult
out of it. I know, right? It's weird when you cross that line and you're like, I've been out longer than I was in, but I still can't get away from it.
Graduated Minco High School.
1999, class president.
Okay, good.
Yeah,
Congratulations.
52, oh, thank you. I just found out. And I've got a lot of work to do. 52, we graduated class of 52. And so I pretty much went to school with the same group of people from pre-K all the way up. And
Right.
we were one of the bigger classes. Most classes there are like in the 40s or so, maybe. And so it's grown some since, but yeah.
And then you went to Oklahoma Christian University.
I went there, did theater, and then transferred to corporate media under Dr. Larry Journey.
Yeah, well,
Great guy.
may
And
he
his
rest in
son-
peace.
Right, and his son Dave as well.
May he also rest in
Yeah,
peace.
I was in Dave's classes, and I was a, I know that he and I clashed because I was just difficult. I don't know. I went there and I wanted to, well, like back in Minco, there was no performance, there was no theater, there were no arts. I could be the mascot for the football team, and that was the only chance I had to perform with an audience, a built-in audience. And I couldn't understand why the people weren't coming to the games to just see me. And I had so many memories of people being like, "Hey, Bulldog, move your butt so we can watch the literally." And I don't say that lightly. I also thought it'd give me a chance to date the cheerleaders. I thought that would be a better. It didn't work.
No.
I was just a service dog for the. But I have a great respect for cheerleaders, and I know that it is a sport. And it's so interesting to me too. And again, nothing against sports and all that, but there are people that will go out and be on a team and not get to participate for a whole season maybe. But those cheerleaders are all given over 100% every single time.
Exactly.
And so it was really fun. That was the only chance I had to really perform regularly. And I have a lot of people, I could achieve all kinds of great things. I'm not saying I have. I'm just saying I could potentially. But my hometown, most of the people will not be satisfied that I did not become a professional mascot. I think they're very disappointed. But I didn't do flips. I didn't do stunts or anything like that.
Right.
I just did physical comedy. It was like Charlie Chaplin in a big bulldog uniform that was way too big for me. And I had props and jokes, and I would just sneak up behind people and do goofy things and stuff. So I went to college and I studied theater. And then when I hit the wall with my wonderful, and I did all the plays. Even when I changed my major, I still did all the plays. I worked in the scene shop. Do you talk about where you record this at? Do we talk about the fact that we're here at Carpenter Square?
Well, I usually, as part of my intro, will mention that we're recording in the rehearsal studio at Carpenter Square. But they're sponsored. This Town OKC podcast is sponsored by Carpenter Square Theater because they let me record in the rehearsal studio.
Well, I just want to say, like, coming in here and the smells of the theater and sitting in the room with some of the furniture and props and where, I don't know, there's just energy. There's energy from shows. There's energy. And I think about it, I get chills.
Yeah.
Because creativity and people and love and pain and hurt and anger and laughter come together. And there's that energy that stays. And so I worked in the scene shop for the first couple years of my college career. That was my, going to a private university. I was working every gig I could. I was trying to not take out so many loans. But I worked in the scene shop and stuff. But then my advisor, Phil Reagan, who's an amazing, great teacher and director, and I enjoyed my time with him. He was like, "So we need to start looking at your classes you're taking here." Because right when I came in the door, I started taking all theater classes and all arts. I didn't take any basics until like my end of my junior year.
Oh, my.
Because my advisor was like, you have got to take your basics. Most people do the easy stuff first. I was like, no. I did all, and I went in heavy. Well, then I changed my major. So I kind of built my own major. And I tell kids that too. I say kids, college kids. You know, you can build your major with what you do, and you can use those things in a lot of different ways. And Dr. Journey became my advisor when I switched my major to corporate media with an emphasis in television, radio, and film. This is when I found out that if I kept my theater degree, they said, well, do you want to teach theater or do you want to teach English? I was like, oh, I'm not thinking I'm just going to be a teacher. I mean, I like people and stuff, but I don't think I could. I can't do that. They're like, oh, well, then what are you doing here? Yeah. I was like, well, I wanted to be a performer. They're like, oh, we try to discourage that. And I was like, well, then what are we doing? And in my whole life, I just kind of grew up not like in some kind of blindness of you're entitled to go do and be anything you want, but there was always that possibility, but it was going to be a lot of work. And in that small town, I was constantly told, that's really great. What are you going to fall back on? Oh, that's really great. Well, what's going to be your real job? That's really fun, but it's really hard to do. But none of the guys that wanted to go into sports or the girls that were going to look at professional or not even professional, just going to college, nobody was asking them, well, what's your major going to be? Or what are you going to fall back on if your knee blows out first day of practice? Or when you decide, I'm not the big man on campus here, I'm going back home, And they weren't getting that question. What are you going to fall back on? And so it really offended me. So I wouldn't tell people for a long time what I wanted to really do. I would say, I just kind of want to work in, maybe media. And that was enough for them to think like, okay, I understand television news. There's a local TV station. Okay, well, maybe you could do that. And so I was like, yeah, okay, whatever makes you feel good. And in hindsight, I'm looking back realizing these are people that were looking out for me, that loved me but didn't understand. And that's all they knew is what they'd heard on True Hollywood Stories, and it's like how hard it is,
right?
And to do it, well, yeah, because it's so easy to go and be a professional athlete. It's so easy to go be to do other things, and so I wouldn't tell people what I wanted to do. I felt kind of, I don't know, maybe ashamed or embarrassed. Dr. Journey said, still take your film classes, your audio, your vocal classes, and work on your craft. And he told me the best advice, and I tell this to other people, whatever they, it's not necessarily a belief thing necessarily, but for me, he told me, he's like, God's not going to waste your brain. If you learn something, because I was really discouraged because I was like, man, I took these 2 years, I took a lot of classes, and now I'm changing my major. I wasted that time, even though I would still get credit and could graduate. And I was like, I should have been learning something else. And he's like, no. You will use that. And it might not be how you think. And it might not be for your job, but it might be to help somebody out, or it might be for something that you're doing in the community outreach, or maybe helping. And I've realized this for my kids now that I've got 2 sons in high school that do the arts and music and stuff. And there was one class, Dave Journey, his son, taught, and I tooth and nail did not want to have to do this audio for media class, because I was like, this is not really, I want to perform, but I don't need to know all this is, the early
knobs and the DBs and
yeah, I just didn't understand it because it seemed like there were numbers involved, and that was really what it was. And Doc was always like, if you put something together for like a radio loop, you're going to have a minute cut, a 30-second, a 20, a 15, a 10, and a 5.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay. And so we did that. And he's like, if that's packaged that way, then it's ready to go. And so that's filed away. And I just always thought about it. So I think about those things. And it's interesting because a Dave Journey class had that. That was the class I took. And Doc Journey had always told me, God won't waste your brain. And fast forward, I guess we could talk about it later on, but one of the coolest opportunities I ever got was because of that actual class. And I knew how to cut an original song in that time. And I just knew, between everything else, what I had learned and continued to learn over the years took me to the coolest opportunity, the coolest gig, I guess, that I could have ever dreamt of. And it was something I fought tooth and nail about. So just like eating crow, man, just like a lot of crow. And I'll tell that to students and stuff. And I was like, don't get discouraged, and I'll never use algebra. Well, I don't really know about that whole thing. But some of these specific things are people that they think they have to take these arts classes and they're not an artist, or they think they have to take this and they don't really want to do that. I was like, man, I can tell you, you won't, it's exciting to wonder how you're going to get to use that, because you will use it.
Yeah.
And Steve Martin always said that too. It's like all the different skills he had. And I'm a big Steve Martin enthusiast, and he was really what shaped my career, or my comedy focus and stuff. And he grew up working at Disneyland as a child,
Right.
until he was 18, and then worked at Knott's Berry Farm and just saw it all. Behind the scenes, in front of the scenes, he went from selling programs to working on stages and juggling and learning magic trick and everything like that. And he will still use this to this day. We're watching Only Murders in the Building, and I'm late to it, but the season's already wrapped. But in the first episode, I think he's doing card tricks. And I know because of the things I've read of his, and he's done other things like that too. And he said, like, you use everything you got.
Yeah.
And these are things that he's been doing since he was like, 15, 16, working at the magic shop at Disneyland and stuff. So I try to like take that in, and also still tell myself too, don't be afraid to keep learning because I still got some time to do stuff. So,
all right, let's get back to your raising. You've graduated now from Oklahoma Christian University. What was your first job out of college?
Well, my last semester of college, I kind of, it's like a study abroad program, except I didn't leave the country. I went to Los Angeles, which some people think is a whole nother world. I did a studies program there for my last semester. So I was there because I've switched my major and I chose an emphasis as television, radio, film. I was the only major of that. And we didn't have a film program. They didn't have a film program at the school. But I could do this program in LA and get my credits for writing and film history and stuff like that,
I remember Dr. Journey telling me about that.
Yeah. He was the one that told me that. When I switched my major over, he's like, this is what you should do. And I was thinking, I'm not going to do that. I don't want to be gone. I don't want to miss doing the play. I don't want to do these things. But I did it, and I interned at that 70s show and a couple other TV shows at Carsey Warner Mandabach there on CBS Radford, which so many like legendary shows and movies were produced there, from Golden Girls and Roseanne and Seinfeld and even the Muppet movie, which the outside scene of when Kermit's playing the banjo in the opening of the Muppet movie, that is the outdoor swamp area that they filmed Gilligan's Island whenever they were ever outside. So if you ever watch that, you think like, that looks familiar. It's like, yeah, it's the same swamp. It sadly had been drained and converted because Big Brother and reality TV was taking over. And so they drained Gilligan's Swamp to put in a bunch of ugly barns so they could do Big Brother. And all the people, they were so upset about it. But I got a lot of education there, and it taught me not just about like writing and things like that. It was all about people, and it was all about like the hierarchy, the good, the bad, the ugly, the beautiful, the drama, the middle school world and elementary school world that media is. And I loved it. One of my biggest learning things I ever experienced was watching. So at that 70s show, I would go to so all my friends would like hang out on Fridays and Saturday nights, but those are the nights that they would tape new episodes. And I was the only one working in television and comedy television. Everybody else wanted to work on film. And so I would get to go to the tapings just because I interned there in the post-production house. I wasn't working on the set. I wasn't an actor. I was just getting to watch. And because of that, I started befriending people. One who had a comedian who had a regular appearance the year that I was there in season 6, who became Jim Gaffigan.
Wow.
And so I spent more time with Jim Gaffigan than any other like name out there because I was a starving college student and he liked to eat. And so he would hang out and he's like, nobody eats at these things. We have the best food, but all the actors just smoke because they're trying to stay skinny. He's like, I don't care about that. So every time I'd see him, he'd be like, hey, buddy. He never knew my name. He was like, hey, buddy, they're having empanadas. They've got chicken kebabs. And one time I remember I walked in and it was like he and his wife were there sometimes. And he'd be like, hey, buddy, you remember last week whenever we were here and there was that guy that came to visit and he had that leather jacket on and wore sunglasses the whole time, and he had that entourage with him and he was hanging out in here with us? And I was like, yeah, I remember that. And he's like, somebody told me that was Usher. I'm like, what? He goes, yeah. I was like, man. And he goes, do you know who Usher is? I'm like, no. I'm like, me neither. So Jim Gaffigan taught me. I'm jumping now, but I got to do the Martin Scorsese movie, Killers of the Flower Moon. In Lily Gladstone, in the scene that I was in, I'm in the band, we're playing music on the porch. I'm playing banjo there, and it's the wedding between the main characters and Leonardo DiCaprio and Lily Gladstone. Well, Lily's wearing this beautiful Native American wedding gown that goes down to her ankles, and it was so hot and it was dusty, and the only AC unit system they had was inside this house. So they would go inside the house to cool off in between takes. She couldn't walk up the steps because her skirt went down to her ankles and she couldn't step up, but she could turn around and walk backwards. And so she was there and everybody just watching her and not doing anything because like, well, this is not my place or I don't want to embarrass her or do whatever. And I'm just thinking like, she's going to fall. So I just put my vintage banjo that I've been holding on to, I throw it on the ground and I go and grab her hand and she just locks fingers with me. And she's like, thank you. And I walk her up the steps backwards and we walk together all the way up and she goes inside. So every time that she needed to go up, she would just kind of look at me and side eye me and open her hand up, her fingers up. And it was like my signal to go help her out. And that's a silly thing, but it's one of those things. It's like, well, is there a union person that holds somebody's hand and helps them walk up the steps? No, I'm just going to go and do the thing. And maybe somebody's like, you shouldn't be talking to the talent. You shouldn't be holding hands with the talent. Well, I was like, I didn't want her to fall.
Right, exactly. One of the first professional gigs I ever saw you do was Donnie on the Ferguson car spots. Yes.
That was like going on 18 years ago.
Oh, my goodness. And you're still doing that, right?
Well, they still have me. They'll pull Donnie out of the back rafters every once in a while.
Recycle some?
Yeah, we've shot so many of those commercials that a lot of times they'll just reuse them because there was some fun quality to it, and people they realized, just like, I don't know, certain national spots you'd see like during the holidays especially. We've been seeing that M&M commercial with Santa for 25 years.
Exactly.
Or we've been seeing the ringing bells of I'm comparing myself to these major things. But I think they would think like, hey, we could just change the car and the price out and use it again. So I tell people, Gary, who's in the spot with me, he's a great guy and he's been working with Ferguson for a long time and he's just he's a real diamond in the rough. That dealership, I'll say, I've had good experiences and trust a lot more than other dealerships. You know, it's interesting how I got that gig, though, and I don't really know. I feel like this is at least what was told to me. I had filmed this little video of myself playing the accordion all around my hometown in Minco to Country Gardens. So the old... I heard it on the Muppet Show when I was a kid, and I loved that song. So my mom was kind of like distracted because it was coming up on my sister's wedding. And I said, hey, you know what? I'm coming down to Minco. We'll hang out for a day. And I had a camera with me and I had my accordion. I was like, let's just go around. You're just going to film me. So I made her film me all around town. Then I edited it all together where I'm playing the same song and suddenly I'm
in different
downtown
locations,
and I'm over here. And then like if people would just walk by in the background, it would be kind of a comic relief where I'd be standing in front of train tracks and a train would go by and you can't hear me. Or I'm in front of our church, the Church of Christ that doesn't use instruments, and I'm humming. I'm not playing the instruments so I don't get in trouble. And then I'm suddenly at the Baptist church and I'm just wailing on the thing, you know. This was in the early days of, still in the earlier days of YouTube. And it got like 3,000 hits, which was a big deal then. So much so that the Daily Oklahoman did like an article on it.
And Ferguson saw that?
There was a new group forming for Boiling Point Media, and now they do a lot of film and stuff too. But the original founders of that were trying to get, I think, Ferguson to be their main advertiser. And so they talked to me. They said, would you like be the funny character that could be like, and I grew up loving Ernest. And that's what Ernest did. Ernest did he did local commercials nationwide. He was selling Mellow Yellow in this state. He was doing Brahms here in Oklahoma, and then he was doing TV stations. I mean, it was everything.
All over the country.
Similar ideas, and sometimes the same shtick, and they would just change it out. And I loved that.
Right.
I thought he was a genius.
And I remember asking you why you weren't doing that in other markets.
And they did a little bit, but I just don't think. I don't know. Maybe it's by the time that we had done it so long, people kind of thought, we're ready to do something different creatively, and they weren't thinking of it that way. But I was thinking like, man, this is already done. Like we've shot all these. We could use these everywhere. So it's still out there, folks. No, we did it a few different markets, though. We did it up in Tulsa. We did it in Pryor.
Okay.
But they were the same kind of character, which is like the doofy idiot that shouldn't be working there. Right. That was the thing. Is like, it's interesting because It shows that they have a lot of charm for hiring this idiot. Donnie doesn't know what he's doing.
Exactly.
They used to get calls. They used to get calls at the dealership, and they'd be first because the whole. For those of you who haven't seen a classic Donnie commercial, it was always Donnie missed the mark or didn't understand, and it became kind of a common thing in a lot of like commercials and stuff. And I don't really know what the inspiration was, but it was like Gary's like, Donnie, we don't have to do that. We're just good guys making great deals. And then we'd show the car thing, and it'd be a little. But I learned like if there's a funny little tag or some little moment or a beat or a line at the end, it doesn't matter what you do all the beginning.
Exactly.
Just like in a movie and stuff, they say if you wow them at the end, if we gave them some little line, people would carry that. And it was cutting through during a lot of loud car commercials and stuff. And it wasn't it was well produced, but it wasn't like they weren't pouring in a lot of special effects. It wasn't like a over-the-top cinematic masterpiece. It was very basic, kind of like those Ernest spots. It's just like one camera moving back and forth. I'm really proud of them because we got to do some really fun stuff. Ryan and I would spend a lot of times, and Andy Swanson, a lot of the guys Josh McCamey, a lot of those guys that worked with Boiling Point, we would drive down to Norman just like still brainstorming. Oh, what if we did this? What if we did this? And one of our greatest ones was on the eve of winter. We knew we were going to be going to a winter storm season. And I don't know if Ryan had seen a post on social media about this or something, but he's like, oh, I got it. It's like, and he sent one of the guys, go buy bread and milk and eggs. And you're like, why? He's like, just do it. So he comes back, he's like, we're gonna talk about like, because car commercials are always, you're gonna do the hail, storm, sail, or different things or whatever. And he's like, well, during winter season, if there's ever gonna be like storms, we'll do this one. So the spot was, I run up and I was like, Gary, I'm ready. I got the eggs, I got the breads, and I got the milks. He's like, why do people buy those things when there's a winter storm? And I go, because I like French toast, Gary. Because that was the thing. It's like you buy the 3 most perishable items to go into a store, but like that's what people always were rushing to do.
Right.
And but I would have people for a long time say, people like French toast, Gary. But when I first started doing it, Gary would be like, Donnie, and they thought he was being too mean. And there was a few people that called me like, you're being mean to that boy. And he doesn't understand. And they'd be like, he's just an actor. They're like, we don't care what he is, but you're just being mean to him. So Gary has such a big heart. And he's like, I do not want to be screaming at him. So we always make sure he's smiling and laughing. Like, so it went from Donnie to Donnie. So it goes up where it's like, oh, Donnie.
Yeah.
But then we'd have other people come and be like, why do you have that idiot working there? He's ruining everything. But that's how I got that job was interesting because you had a group from Boiling Point and 2 different guys from that one of them had talked to me and he said, I'm going to show that video of you playing the accordion because it just shows, I don't know, your quirkiness or something. I don't even talk in it. It was just really weird. Right. If I'm remembering this correctly, maybe I'm wrong, but I've told this enough times now, maybe it's lore. But he was going to take that video in and he said, the thing is the dealership says that they've already got a guy they're thinking about. And then there's another guy in my ad group that's got a guy he's thinking about too. And so they go in and they play the clip. The first clip they play is me playing the accordion. And then the guy goes, okay, now show yours. And he's like, no, that was mine. And the other guy's like, no, that was mine. And so like they all were going to show that or something. And so anyway, it was just one of those weird things, whatever it was. And that's why I tell, especially like young people now that want to get into some kind of, I don't know, career. And it's so easy now, but to make something and put it out there. I made that just to entertain myself and to create some kind of art thing, and you never know what it could do. And that's been such a blessing. I'm very grateful for that. Well over almost 2 decades since we started doing those spots, and I've gone on quite a few neat rides and adventures because people believed in me in the beginning and encouraged me enough to keep doing it. Well, some people would probably be upset that I kept doing it. They're like, oh, dang, that Donnie guy needs to. I've had a few people. That's been the interesting thing, too, is like, for the most part, it's been pretty good. People are like, I actually like those commercials. And that's always nice to hear.
Right.
Because like, they're commercials. Nobody's watching TV for the commercials. And if you're asked, do you like these? Well, no. Well, you don't like them. You just don't like being separated from your program. Back in the days where you couldn't skip or stream something, nobody had opinions about the Mathis brothers until you were asked, well, I don't want to watch a commercial. I want to watch my show. So you start building this anger up towards, and that's what I wanted to be when I was a kid as a Mathis brother.
I have to ask you how you got first to the banjo and how that led to Kermit.
Well, I do play the banjo.
Because they're connected.
They are almost like a rainbow connection.
Ooh.
The first time I ever heard the banjo was Kermit playing when I was a kid, and I love that opening of the Muppet movie. I'm a Muppet kid. I was born in 1980, right in the height of golden Sesame Street. The Muppets were dominating the world. The Muppet Show was huge, and as we're recording this right now, we're going into what will be the 50th anniversary of the Muppet Show.
Yeah, we're recording this in early January 26.
And they're going to be celebrating in February the Muppet Show turning 50 years old. So the Muppets have been around for 70 years now. But the banjo I heard Kermit play, well, in the beginning of the Muppet movie, whenever that starts, you just see the swamp. That before it cuts to Gilligan's Island set, it's this hovering helicopter shot of Mississippi swamp, and you hear the banjo. And you hear Kermit sing for almost maybe a couple minutes before he ever shows up on screen. I always loved that as a kid. My dad would be like, "Can you find Kermit?" Because you never know. He's on the screen somewhere, and you can kind of see movement, and then all of a sudden, boom! Ah! And I get chills thinking about it. It sounds so silly, but I just realized that was my dad that was like, "We got to find Kermit." In old televisions too, like we didn't have HD stuff, so it was all like, fuzzy, trying to find where Kermit was. And then the camera just moves in, and he's sitting by himself singing Rainbow Connection. And I love that sound. There's something about the sound and the brightness of the instrument that really stuck with me. But it wasn't really something I had access to. Years later, I'd find Steve Martin records. And my friend Doug Thompson introduced me to a lot of Steve Martin comedy that, of course, predated us by about a decade and a half or so. And I loved his comedy. And he played a banjo. I was like, that's just a different instrument. Anybody can get a guitar.
Right.
But a banjo... And there was a lady at my church, Sharon McComas, who had a banjo. And she was like, "Do you want to borrow this banjo?" I was like, "I do." So I was doing Steve Martin imitations in 7th grade. And I was wearing a white suit. I couldn't find a white suit. I found one person in my hometown that had a white suit, and it was my piano teacher. So I was wearing a women's white suit to be Steve Martin with an arrow through the head, the rabbit ears, and I had a banjo. But I didn't even know how to play it, and there was no internet, and there were no teachers there. So I would just tune it into an open chord and just bar chord it, just put my fingers across it and just strum it. I didn't even have a pick. I was using a penny. And I didn't know you're supposed to do finger picking with a 5-string banjo. I didn't know anything, but it was a prop to me. Now, this will really shift a lot when I realized the importance and the depth of that instrument when I got older and got more serious about it. But I had that banjo for a while, and I remember my senior year, right before I graduated, that sweet Sharon McComas, who's passed on, and she said, "Hey, you still have that banjo?" I was like, "Yeah, I do." She's like, "Do you ever play it?" And I was like, "Sometimes I do." And she's like, "Well, I've been thinking about it, and you're about to graduate, and I just thought, I need to get that back." And I was like, "Oh," I thought she was going to give it to me. She's like, "Well, I want my grandkids to get to play with it." Of course, who was I to think and I hadn't worked on it. But years later, I would go see, my wife got me tickets to see Steve Martin toured out of the blue. He stopped doing comedy in the early 80s and just went right into film and other entertainment and walked away from stand-up comedy. And he was doing these huge, huge shows and stuff. And so, but he went on tour around 2009, I think, with a bluegrass banjo tour, The Crow. And I got to go see him, and we got front row seats, and I was like, I'm getting a banjo, and I'm going to learn how to play. And I spent a year. I was like, I'm going to learn to play the banjo in a year, and I'm going to meet Steve Martin in that year. So I started on his birthday, August 14th, and I spent one whole year, and I didn't meet him, but I learned to play the banjo.
Okay.
But then 4 days after my goal, I met him.
Oh, nice.
So I should have said, "And I'm going to find $1 million."
Right.
No. Cool. But I'm grateful for that because I learned and I really fell in love with the instrument. And I played I played by ear. I struggled to read music my whole life, and because I could play by ear, teachers and my band instructor would expect me to be able to play and read anything because I could do it, and they didn't understand that I couldn't read it. I just struggled, and I could every good boy does D doink. I could do that. With the banjo, I could do tab, and I could feel it, and I could play that, and I learned. It's one of those things. I felt like I mastered it after a year, and then when I started getting better, I realized how bad I am at it.
Yeah.
And it's like climbing up. You climb to the top of the mountain and you think you figured it out, and then the fog clears and you realize, oh, I'm still at the bottom.
Right.
And then the more you do, and the more experiences, the more people you meet and find that they're doing things, and it inspires you at the same time. It discourages you. You're like, I'm never gonna do this. But it was Kermit that did it. And then my work with the Banjo Museum kind of happened. I've been doing some things with them before, but I became friends with Heather Henson, Jim Henson's youngest daughter. She and I had a mutual friend, I think, that worked at Sesame Street or something. So we were Facebook friends. One of those Facebook friends, like, oh,
right.
we have a mutual. Like, well, I'll see if that person will accept my friendship. Okay. And then you just kind of like each other's posts for a while or whatever. But one day she posted a picture, and it looked like she was in downtown Oklahoma City. And I messaged, and I said, hey, are you in Oklahoma right now? She's like, I am. And I hear there's a storm coming in. I'm kind of freaked out about it. And I was like, well, you could just put this app on your phone. She's like, come find me and do it, because I don't know how. So I was like, we met at the History Center and spent like 2 hours there. She was doing family research. Her dad's dad, so Jim Henson's parents, lived in Meeker, Oklahoma for a while.
Wow.
So Jim Henson has...
That's Meeker, America to you, buddy.
Meeker, America. That's right. And I had heard of Meeker my whole life, because anytime I tell people where I was from, they'd be like, oh, you're from Meeker? I'm like, no, Minco. Minco. It's different.
Yeah.
So we spent some time together, and I was working on this curriculum for the Banjo Museum, just freelance. I was still working at Channel 4 and doing some other things full-time there. And I said, hey, I got to go. Heather, it was so nice to meet you, but I have to go to a meeting at a banjo museum. She's like, there's a banjo museum? I'm like, yeah. It's the only banjo museum, actually. It's in Oklahoma. She's like, I've got something for them if they want it. We've got this banjo that the puppetry exhibits don't really know how to utilize it, because it's not a puppet and it wasn't a prop used on screen, but it was the banjo they recorded all the music for the Muppet Show on. So if you ever heard banjo on the Muppet Show, not the Muppet movies necessarily, but the Muppet Show, it was this 4-string banjo that was being played.
And how far did your jaw drop?
Oh, I was like, I'm going right. So my meeting turned into me going in, and because I had this curriculum I did, I was stuck. How do you talk about the and I said that like I learned a lot about the depth and the history of the banjo. I approached it as a prop early on and realized the banjo has African origins. It is considered America's instrument because it formed itself here on our soil, but it comes through different. It's multicultural, right. Multifaceted, yeah. And strongly from inspirations, the way that we see it, from African gourd instruments, hunters' harps, and things like that. And so I shift my whole perspective, just on a sidebar here, of the banjo is not a prop. I'm the butt of the joke, but the instrument never is. And people will like, oh, banjo, right. And I get that. It's associated with it, and that's just kind of part of it. But I really try to approach it with a lot of respect. And so anyway, that was part of this thing. How do I present this? They wanted me to do like a 5-minute video that oversees the banjo. And I was like, I just want to be funny. I don't want to talk about the heavy stuff. I just want to do this. And like, I just was missing the glue that was holding it all together. And that was what that meeting was for, was to figure out how to make this curriculum video. Well, I'd met Heather right before, and I was like, hey guys, I know we're supposed to talk about this, but I told the executive director, Johnny Byer, I said, do you think the museum would want the banjo that they used on the Muppet Show? And he's like, yeah. Well, and so it led to them getting the banjo and a Kermit photo puppet. So this is they will make poser puppets for like photography or for movie posters and things like that. So they can pose, especially when you're using multiple puppets, the eye line will look correct. If you have 20 puppeteers trying to keep the puppets all looking in the same place, it's under hot lights, it could take a long time.
Right.
So they would take some of their puppets, flesh them out, make them posers for museum displays, exhibits, or photography. And so that's what she had. She had a Kermit one that wasn't being used anymore, that was hers. And so we were able to get the banjo and a Kermit and a couple other relics from Jim Henson, like the blueprints from a Kermit banjo and things like that. And that was really cool. And so at the opening, and they inducted him into the Hall of Fame. So the Banjo Museum inducts about 5 different banjo stars every year. And typically it's banjo performers. Well, Jim Henson didn't play the banjo, but there's a promotion category. And because Kermit is so synonymous with the instrument, and a lot of people, that was their first introduction, or they just associate it, or, I mean, he was playing on the biggest, just like Steve Martin's inducted for promotion as well. Right. So they inducted Jim Henson. That was pretty cool. So they did a ribbon cutting that Hall of Fame morning. And Heather, I got to hold the ribbon, and Heather cut it. And right after the ribbon cutting, the board director and Johnny, they pulled me into a room. It was Doug Parson, who's our board president. He was like, "You want to work here?" I was like, "Yes, I do." And he's like, "It just makes sense." And I'd been like, kind of for a long time being like, I just really like this. I just love this that facility. The Banjo Museum is such a beautiful, stunning visual to see the instruments, but the building itself, Johnny and that team have put together such a great state-of-the-art facility there for a banjo museum. And a lot of people hear banjo museum, they were so, oh, is it like a dusty old collection of a guy's banjos in a garage or something like that? And it's anything but that. Well, then fast forward a little bit later, I was able to get connected with and met the performer of Kermit, Matt Vogel, who's the Kermit performer. He's been performing Kermit for almost 10 years now, but he's a legacy performer. He's performed a lot of different characters, picked up Carol Spinney's Big Bird. He's Big Bird.
Okay.
And the Count and several. Let's just say he gives him a hand. He lifts him up. But he's a great guy, charming guy, and he and I met. And
so now, just for my own understanding, operating the puppet and providing the voice?
Yes, yeah. So that's what a performer, and a lot of people get that kind of mixed up as like, oh, it's just a voice. And it's not just a voice, it's the heart of the whole character. It's the movement, it's the pattern of the speech, it's also the movement of the characters, whether it's Big Bird inside a big full body Muppet or a one hand arm rod character too. Yeah. And so there's a whole lot that goes into it. And Vogel he worked with Carol Spinney for years and was towards the end of Carol's life was pretty much he would perform Big Bird's body while Carol would sometimes perform the audio, or Jerry Nelson, who's from Oklahoma, who performed the Count and Floyd Pepper and a lot of those characters. Matt carries on a lot of his characters there too, which is really, really cool. So he and I connected and met randomly, and he said, "I'm going to be in Oklahoma. Let's hang out." So he came to Oklahoma for his daughter was in Barton Nadia Kamenich's gymnastics bout. And so his daughter and he and his mom and her husband, they all came to the Banjo Museum, and we hung out for a while. And then afterwards, we just kind of stayed friends. And I thought, how cool would it be if we could get Kermit to do like a little video or something for the museum? And that was the missing link that I was missing from this child. It's an education program for all ages because I think the adults like it more now. And so I was able to, with the help of both Matt and also Karen Falk, who works with Jim Henson and the Jim Henson Legacy on that side, to approach Disney of how to ask, could Kermit maybe make an appearance here? I just wanted him to say, "Welcome to the Banjo Museum." Yay! And that's it. Yeah. They're like, well, hey, if we got Kermit here, why don't we write a little thing for him to do? So they wrote this little skit. So when you come to the Banjo Museum on a loop, there's about a 5-minute video of me talking about the banjo and how I know everything about the banjo. And halfway through, you realize I don't really know a lot and I need to figure this instrument out. And I'm listing off all the different kind of people that play, comedians and entertainers and country singers and folk singers. And then this little frog steps in and is like, "Oh, Lucas, I think you forgot somebody." I'm like, "Kermit, nice. What are you doing here?" And he's like, "Yeah, you forgot frogs." I'm like, "Oh, all frogs play the banjo?" I was like, no, only some show business amphibians do." And so that was the coolest thing. I could have hung my hat on and retired. When we finished that video and it was ready to take out into schools, and the Disney company was so gracious to work with us on that, when that was all set to go, we hit the pandemic, and that was that. But I still stayed in touch with Matt and everything. We still had the display, but of course, like everybody, we were all locked down. And so there was a Saturday that I was doing some live stream shows. We would do just content constantly. Every day we had, and with a TV background, here I was working at the Banjo Museum, producing television. Yeah. Like a lot of it. And it was great. And Johnny is so creative and that whole team there. And so we were doing different things. And one of them was my kids show that I do, which I've been doing for years, called Banjo Farm. Then I take it out to the libraries here in the metro and do that. And so I was doing a via satellite, live stream of that, just like so many people were at the time. And I was getting ready to walk in and I remember exactly where I was on the second floor of the museum. And I got a ping on my phone, a little notification, either an email or a text from Matt Vogel saying, "Hey, have you seen this video of Steve Martin playing the banjo like in a field behind his house or something?" Which all celebrities, especially musicians, were all doing just videos of checking in or it was that early day of the pandemic where it was scary. We didn't know how long we were going to be doing this lockdown for. Right. It was in the early stages. And he said, you see this video? And I said, oh yeah, it's great. And it's making the big rounds. Everybody's loving it. And Steve Martin, they're realizing Steve Martin's such a great banjo player. They didn't already know that. And he said, do you think Kermit should do like a response video? And I was like, yeah, of course. He's like, I'm thinking about having Kermit sent to my house, and I'm going to set it all up and film it. I was like, okay. And he's like, I'm going to get my sons to kind of help me. I'm going to do this. And, I was like, okay, what? And he's like, will you record the banjo track for it? And I was like, in my brain, just like, that's insane. Because the Rainbow Connection is the reason why I love the banjo anyway.
Exactly.
And I was like, I don't know, man. There's a lot of good banjo players. And he's like, well, you play like a puppet. And that's what, no, I'm just kidding. He never said that. I always tell people that's what he said because there are good banjo players. But he's like, let's try it and see what they like, if they like it. And Disney liked it. And we did a couple more. And that just kind of turned into a thing where they kept kind of coming back to me and saying, hey, are you okay if we kind of keep you in mind whenever we need Kermit to do something with the banjo? And then it kind of led to another thing. And then there was going to be a watch commercial for Oris watches, and they ran it for a while. It was mostly on the internet, but they ran it on ESPN a few times, and it was the Kermit watch. Oris watches did a Kermit watch. Wow. This is a $4,700 watch that most Muppet fans would never be able to afford, but it's a really cool watch. And in the window on it, instead of the date, every day, it would have the date, except on the first day, it wasn't one. It was just a little picture of Kermit, really tiny little picture of Kermit on a beautiful green front, silver band. You'd wind it. You could see the gears on the inside and stuff. It was a really cool watch. And they said, they're doing a whole campaign with Kermit, and it's all focused on mental health and making time for you. And so the idea is when Kermit shows up on your watch, make sure that that's your day to do something. This is Kermit Day. What's your day? Or what's going to be your thing? And so they said, we want to show Kermit doing different things like having a cup of coffee or reading a book or getting a massage or playing the banjo. And it's like, when we show him playing the banjo, could you record a few strums for this? And I was like, okay. So I was like so excited. Like, this is great. Yeah. Every time I do a thing, I think, oh, this is the end. Okay, great. And then I'm like, oh, okay, this is just like icing on top of the syrup on top of that cherry. And
yeah, exactly.
I guess I should say, and the honey. We didn't say syrup in my house, Rick. My dad always said syrup is a cuss word. But that's never what I heard him say when he'd stub his toe. That preacher. So I was in the studio. My father-in-law, Bob Lashley, who is a legend, a music legend in his own right. He has passed away, but he used to play on well, do you remember the Butch and Ben show?
Oh, yeah.
So he was like...
It was on K4.
Yeah. He was there.
Back when it was KTVY.
Yeah. So he would play on that show, and he would play on Danny's Day. And then on weekends, he was playing at Crystal's Pizza. Wow. He was kind of the house band at least every other weekend. And while he was working at Oklahoma Christian, he had a home studio, and we were able to record the stuff high quality and turn it around fast. And I think that's probably most of why they kept calling me back, because they're like, hey, we're not having to deal with the whole studio session, all this other stuff. And so it was great to get to work with him. He was a great friend of mine before I ever realized I'd be dating and then marrying his daughter. Right. So it's really, really cool. Anyway, so we were in the studio recording these little strums, and they're like, just make a couple things. And Matt would always be cool. He'd text me. He's like, here's what I'm thinking, because he was like, we want it to be consistent because we want it to always feel like it's Kermit, so it always sounds like Kermit's playing, because he is. And he is real, kids. He is real. Sometimes his banjo's just not loud enough, and they ask me to come and back him up. Okay? All right. In case Disney's listening. And so while we were in there, I just was like, I have this idea for a song, for like a whole song about Kermit time, just like time for me. And so I just was like, okay, Bob, I've been working on this thing, and I think I'm just going to record this too. And I'm thinking back to that audio for media class.
Mm-hmm.
A minute, 30 seconds, 20, 15, 10, 5. So I wrote a song that could be easily cut into those, so it's already ready to be used in whatever commercial thing that they want.
Right.
And it was just Kermit singing, time for me, you gotta make time for me. Take a moment of my day for a cup of tea, you gotta make time for me. And I just said, hey, I'm not trying to step out of my box here. I know you just asked me to do this, but I just wanted to, I don't know. I was just moved to write this. And Matt was like, I love this. We'll show it to the client. And we're like, they all loved it. They shifted the whole commercial, and suddenly now my song is the entire commercial.
Oh, my.
The whole thing.
But this is for the watch.
Yeah.
with a $4,700 walk.
Yes. And I had already negotiated my price of just strumming. So yeah, I'm not on the financial side. I'm not no. They're always so good to me. Yeah. they had such a. I got a call from Michael Steinbach, who's a producer with the Muppets team. It's Muppet Studios is a small, tight-knit group of amazing, stellar humans that work with these Muppets. I think they're human. I don't know. They're a little bit too magical to be regular humans.
Yeah.
But Lee Slaughter and Danny and Michael all work there in that office. And Michael called me afterwards. He's like, that shoot was so much fun. Everybody loved that song and everybody was singing it. It just made everybody so happy. And this was like 2 days out of a Honey Festival because I was driving back, picking up my stuff to take out to a Honey Festival to hawk my CDs and stuff. And he called and said, will you be Kermit's like banjo player? So like anytime we got Kermit, it's no guarantee because of projects and stuff, but if we're ever asked or if we're ever doing something, would you be okay being that? And I was like, yeah. How much do I have to pay you for this?
Yeah.
It's the coolest thing in the world. And it's not like an official thing. So my title has been given Craig Shemin, who's a longtime worker with the Jim Henson Company, and he wrote for them. And he also runs the Jim Henson Legacy Foundation. He gave me the title of Kermit's Banjo Advisor. So I'm officially Kermit's banjo advisor. Or I tell people if we go out on the road, I'm his toady instead of roadie. So I thought that was cool enough, and I'm done. You know, I did a song, Kermit. I got to write an original song for Kermit, whatever. Well, then he said, listen, we like that so much, we're going to like package you. If somebody's ever needing Kermit to do banjo, we're going to give them your contact. Is that okay? I was like, yes, please. This is great. Thank you. Well, then he called me the next day. He said, hey, remember how I told you this? Okay, you're going to be getting a call because Kermit's going to be on. And Kermit and Fozzie are going to be on Schoolhouse Rock's 50th anniversary, and Kermit's playing the banjo. So if you want to do it, do it. I'm like, okay. So they called me up, and we did that old classic unpack your adjectives, and Kermit and Fozzie, and I had to go learn how to play. So all those songs on Schoolhouse Rock were like jazzy stuff, and I mean, they weren't written for banjos in mind. So I was having a little bit of a breakdown, and then it's like, figure it out. Kermit's got to do it. And it's got to sound like him. So we got to do that, and that was cool. So I was like, okay, done. And I got to watch it in prime time. It was on television. There's Kermit playing the banjo. Sounds kind of like mine, except he somehow hits better notes than I do. I don't know how it works. And I thought that was enough. And then the next year, I get a call. This is in early 2000. This is 24. And they're like, hey, would you ever want to play live for Kermit? And I was like, that's so weird. Because it was like the Steve Martin thing. I always like set goals, or I would say like, this is what I'd like to do. And I was like, I'd like to create an opportunity where I'd love to find a way that I could play live for Kermit, because Matt, who performs Kermit, is a musician, and he's really cares about the realism of all of it. He's an amazing performer and puppeteer, as well as an actor and a comedian. You have to do it all if you're these characters.
Yeah.
And he really cared a lot about. They would be doing shoots and stuff, and I would get a text from him saying, hey, what hand shape would Kermit be making if he's playing this note, or how should we pose his hands for this thing? And so I'd like text back a picture of my hand, and he texted me back a picture of Kermit's hand. He's like, is Kermit holding his hand right? I'm like, yeah, okay. I was like, this is bizarre. But so that whole thing happened, and they're like, I was like, I really want to play live for Kermit. Well, out of the blue, I get a call from Michael Steinbach and said, hey, Kermit might be playing live. We're working out the details. Would you be available at this time? I'm like, yeah. And they're like, we can't tell you anything about it. And we never had this conversation. I'm like, got it. And got a little bit closer, like, okay, would you be available to be in Austin, Texas during this time? And I'm looking at it, I'm trying to, got the red string on my map in my house, figuring out, what is this? Okay, Austin, this time of year, March, South by Southwest. Okay, I've seen Kermit do some things with like local bands and stuff like that. And I'm figuring he's going to play Rainbow Connection with somebody. And they're like, yeah. Like, okay, we can't tell you who the artist is. I'm like, okay, whatever. So I'm looking at who's coming to South by Southwest. Oh, man, who is? I'm like, this band? Okay, all right. In the past, they've done stuff with like My Morning Jacket and different groups and stuff. Well, it wasn't at South by Southwest. There's another festival that goes on right nearby at Luck Reunion is the name of that festival, and it's run by Willie Nelson. Oh. So Kermit was being invited by Willie Nelson to be the big headline night surprise. So as if that wasn't enough stress anyway, and I didn't know if I'm in the pit, if there's a huge band, if it's just Kermit and Willie, or what it's going to be. But that whole thing I mean, that could be a whole podcast. That was a cool experience. And I was so nervous, Rick, for like 2 months out or 3 months out. I knew that was coming. Maybe oh, hold on. January, February, March, 3 months. I would wake up in the night. I was like learning to play it in every single key. And what if a string breaks? How am I going to play? What if how do I stay calm? And then I started thinking, no, how do I play if I'm having a heart attack? So I would give myself I would try to hyperventilate so I could still play, because I was like, Kermit is consistent. He cannot flinch.
Right.
So we got there, and it was the first time for me to work with, and I had met them before, but it was my first time to like connect and work with them in person, a lot of them, and Kermit in person. I did everything, through email and
remotely
stuff. And he would send me kudos every once in a while, or leave me a nice text message like, hey, good job, Lucas. Try to tune it next time, stuff like that. And
play something
play something else. I got there, and they were so kind, and I felt like all the years and all the anxiety and all the times that I was always afraid or ashamed of like the arts or what I wanted to do, or even when we go and film a local commercial, like, oh, these people are gonna think that we're in the way, or I'm embarrassed, or whatever this like fear was all gone, because I felt like I am where I'm supposed to be. These are my people. I don't know if they felt that way about me. It's probably the exact opposite. It was really, really cool. And I kept telling my wife, I was like, Aubrey, I can't believe how calm I am here. And then afterwards, she's like, Lucas, we were at a Willie Nelson concert. Everybody was calm. I was like, oh, those are fog machines. No. It was very professional. None of that, at least that I partake of or knew what was going on. But it was very cool. So we spent the day before that show. And of course, we were all there and we couldn't tell people who we were or what. So we were all backstage and this festival and stuff, and people didn't know who we were or what. And they had this little tent area to hide Kermit, because nobody could know. They didn't want to get out, because then suddenly, boom, everybody knows. And so there was non-disclosure signings and everything that. We couldn't tell our family, but my wife, Aubrey, got to come out and be there for it, and Matt's wife, and then Bradley Freeman Jr., who was the puppet assist, so he helped Kermit's hands move and be accurate. He was also a musician. And Bradley is great because he's just now, I think they just announced this, he's the new performer for Rizzo the Rat and Bean Bunny and some other great characters. And he's been working on Sesame Street for years. Great team of people. And I just get to be front row. And I feel like, just like I was at Channel 4, when I was working at Channel 4, and people are like, that's so cool you get to work with Linda Cavanaugh. And I was like, I know. And I'm like the little brother that gets to play. I'm not really supposed to be here. And I felt the exact same way at Willie Nelson, because everybody's like, this is so cool. I was like, I know. And so we'd be with Willie Nelson's team, and these guys married to the road, Rick, that have like never gonna get married, never have kids and stuff like that, are blubbering like a baby the second Kermit comes out on stage for a sound check. For real. And they're just like, nobody's joking about the fact that, oh, we got a puppet. Really? They're like just in awe. And the guy pulls me to the side and says, we've worked with Dolly Parton, and we've worked with Aerosmith and the Beach Boys, and we've played with so many people. Kermit is possibly the biggest star we'll ever work with, because he was here before us and he'll be here after us. I was like, this is amazing. I was like, I get it. And he's like, I don't think you do. I was like, trust me, I do. Because I've been losing sleep making sure this is right. And so the setup was Kermit and Willie are out on stage, and then Willie was going to be accompanied by his son Micah, and then that was it. And it was just me. And so the day before, we got to go out to his ranch house and practice it. So we played a few times, and there's some cool video that will never probably see the light of day. Of us sitting on the porch working through it. I remember Willie talked to, the first time I ever talked to Kermit in person, Kermit was introducing me to Willie Nelson. So that was my I got to meet Willie and Kermit at the same time, and Kermit was throwing shade at me because what he said to Willie is like, oh, and this is Lucas. He thinks he plays the banjo. He's not very good. And he's like, hello. And I'm like, and afterwards I was like, Matt, that was the first time Kermit's ever talked to me in person. And he's like, oh, what did he say? And I was like, well, you threw shade at me. He's like, I'm so sorry. I was like, no, it's the best. Thank you. This is the best. So it was so cool. So we played, and Willie was like, hey, he said to me, he's like, I'm just going to kind of follow you. I was like, oh, you are? I was like, no. I was like, I was going to follow you. And he's like, well, I'm planning on following you. And everybody, like, there's 30 people hovering around, then there's like a 10-foot separation and just 4 of us on this porch. He's like, I'm just following you. And I go, well, we're just going to be following each other in a circle. And everybody's like, laughing. And I'm like, what? That was funny. Whatever. But it was great. It was a cool experience. But in that night, even that night when Kermit came on stage, people's minds were blown. And it was really exciting and cool to get to see that from my perspective and to know all the different, how much work goes into it.
Yeah.
And to make that magic real. And that was cool. And again, I could have hung my hat on that. But then at the end of that year in September, so that was in March and September.
Well, hang on. Hold on to that because I have a couple of questions about that gig.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, first off, on the stage, when Kermit and Willie are playing with Willie's son, Micah, what's the set? Kermit sitting on a hay bale?
He's sitting on a crate? On a stool, a bar stool, especially made a little bit taller bar stool just for Kermit.
Okay.
I got a little picture of it here, but the audience can't see it. So,
oh my goodness!
They have a little bar stool for Kermit. He's holding his little banjo, and so it's just Willie and Kermit, really casual. And that's how the whole festival kind of is, real casual.
Show that to me again, so I can kind of describe it. And there's like a black curtain in front of the bar stool.
No, actually, the photo that you're looking at, they obscured it by the back of a head of somebody.
Okay,
you could see, and there's a lot of video online. They don't hide the puppeteers,
Oh, really?
Sometimes, but for these kind of things, the focus, there were monitors and people had filmed, and they'll film it the same.
Right.
But they're in person. You could see. They weren't hiding themselves.
Kind of like War Horse, where you see all the people operating the horse.
Yeah, a little bit. It's not so much in the idea
or even
like Lion King, where you see the puppeteers are dressed alike.
Yeah.
It's more. The puppets, Jim Henson wasn't really precious about him. I've heard them say it was a tool, and he'd be interviewed on Johnny Carson, and he pulled out Kermit, and he wasn't a ventriloquist either. He wasn't hiding the fact that his mouth was moving, but you didn't really care. You got past the fact, and suddenly you're just looking at this frog and listening to him. Yeah, and Matt captures
like
that.
Avenue Q.
Yeah, a little bit of that, yeah. And I feel like those are kind of dual performances where the performer's also putting on a show where you can kind of choose who you look at or they complement each other.
Yeah.
It's hard to define, and that's another level of why anybody that thinks that they can do a voice or whatever doesn't mean that they can play the part. And they probably can't do the voice either. I think everybody thinks they can do a Kermit voice, but nobody can except the guy.
All right, so my second question about this gig, where were you?
Like physically?
Physically,
yeah.
while Kermit is on stage.
I was on the sound booth on the stage. There was a stage sound connection.
You're off to stage right, stage left.
I'm in a little tinted area, and so I could see Kermit because I needed to be able to see the hands to make sure it's accurate and that we're there.
Exactly.
And we had these cues and stuff. He's like, Kermit's like going to breathe in, and that's going to be the first note.
Okay.
Because the opening of the Rainbow Connection is that dun 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 dun, and it kind of sustains. And we didn't know how much the audience was going to be cheering or what, if we were going to. So there was a lot of elements to kind of hold for.
Okay.
So yeah, and what was funny that I was there, so I could see, I don't know, 10, 15 feet away from them probably. They're center stage. I'm off to the side hiding. If you were down in the pit, you could see something, but I wasn't. I was hiding,
Okay.
Well, I was
not as visible as a puppeteer.
No, yeah. And I didn't know. Sometimes I would think, oh, they might just have a whole band there. I thought a whole band was actually going to play until I got there and realized, like, no, it's just you and Willie, and then maybe his son doing some guitar that will come in.
Wow.
And I'm glad that I didn't know that till I got there because I think I would have slept even less.
Okay.
Even less.
All right. So that's one more thing you could have just hung your hat on. You were going to go to the next.
Well, just that was, but then that night at the end of the show, Willie brings out everybody that's performed, all of the main acts for the day. His kids all have bands and things. Hall and Oates, I don't know if it was Hall or Oates, one of them was there. Polyphonic Spree was in the audience, all these big names that were there playing. Victoria Bigelow, who is an up-and-coming artist, she was there performing for this concert. So a lot of really awesome musicians are there. And then me, it makes no sense. But no, it wasn't me. It was Kermit. That's the truth.
Okay, Kermit.
Kermit was, yeah. But at the end, Willie brings everybody on stage. So they're like, hey, Kermit's going to come out, but for this, we want to kind of have him hidden in a group of people. So Lucas, you come out too, because he wants you to come out too. And I was like, well, I shouldn't be visible. I'm supposed to be,
right.
I'm not
I'm behind the curtain.
Yeah, right. They said, well, we'll kind of use a little bit of that. And we'll use you to kind of block. Matt can kind of hide behind you, and we'll stand as a group. So anyway, so at the end, Willie does I'll Fly Away, and we all go out and do I'll Fly Away. And we did 3 songs. We did, I think, I'll Fly Away, and then the last one we did was Oh Lord, It's Hard to Be Humble. And that's the old Mac Davis song, not Miles, Mac Davis. Oh Lord, it's hard to be humble when you're perfect in every way.
Yeah.
I can't wait to look in the mirror because I get better looking each day. To know me is to love me. I must be a heck of a man. Oh Lord, it's hard to be humble, but I'm doing the best that I can. And so that's how he ends the show. So I got to go out there, and Kermit's over my shoulder. I'm standing with Willie's daughters and her band, and Willie's singing, and my wife's down in the front row, and there's 5,000 people out there. And it was hard to be humble, Rick, in that moment.
Oh.
I was like, this is amazing. And Willie looks over and he was so excited to have a banjo there. And I really didn't do too much because I was afraid to screw it up. They told me too, they're like, do you want us to mic you when you go out there? I was like, no. I'm just there. I'm just here I'll jam, but yeah, I don't want you to. And he looked at me and was smiling. And I was like, in that moment, I was like, Lord, it is hard to be humble. And that's when the Lord humbled me. And my finger pick. So when I play the banjo, I wear little metal finger picks on my index and my middle finger, and then a plastic thumb pick. My middle finger pick, I strummed up and it hooked, and the string just created like a slingshot, and it shot the pick up in the air and hit the ground and rolled over right next to Willie's shoe, like right behind where he was sitting. And nobody saw. I was like, okay, except one small little amphibian over my shoulder.
Oh my.
In between the lines. Oh Lord, it's hard to be humble. Did you drop a pick? When you're perfect in every way, I will never work with you again. He's just like razzing me. He's like, you're so unprofessional. I was like, oh no, this is the best experience of my life. So there's this video years before, in 2018, I fell on live TV on channel 43 on Rise and Shine, and it went viral. And that Sunday morning, Willie Guy shows it on the Today Show, and I get a call from Robin Vickery, I grew up across the street from her in Minco, and she said, Lucas, you were on Willie Guys today. And I was like, what? That was the first I knew this was going to be like a viral thing. Fast forward to 2024, that concert was on the same weekend of St. Patrick's Day, and we were on the Today Show again on that Sunday, and I got a text from Robin saying, I saw you again on the Today Show. And it was just these weird little like things.
No kidding.
It's silly stuff, but that was cool. That was great. And then I thought, that's enough. I'm good. I don't want to mess this up. Well, then in September, I got invited to go out to do banjo for Kermit for this talk at the University of Maryland. Now, Jim Henson graduated from the University of Maryland, and he wanted to work in early days of television, and the way he did that was via puppetry. And he took sewing classes and learned how to make puppets and started working at the D.C. station and created this show called Sam and Friends, which is hilarious, amazing, and there's a great book about it by Craig Shemin if you want to know all about it. And then there's another book, I think, that just came out with all the scripts that they would do. And this was time filler in between, not unlike better, I'm sure, than our 2 movie guys, but the same idea. These little 5-minute increments in between programming where they had no rules and they were creating their own style of comedy with these characters. But Jim realized you don't have to have a puppet behind a proscenium. The TV screen is a proscenium, and suddenly it makes them realer and closer to you. And then he was making the eye focus to where the audience could really feel like they were looking into Kermit's eyes. And that was so groundbreaking. Anyway, a lot of that happened in his early days and when he went to school at University of Maryland. So in honor of his birthday in September, they had Matt Vogel come out to do Kermit was invited and Matt had to come along. The dean of students there wanted to interview Kermit, and she's an amazing voice there. She grew up in, I can't remember where in Africa, but she learned to speak English because of Sesame Street. So she's very, very appreciative of Kermit the Frog. And she told all about this. And so they wanted to have Kermit be there. They were going to have their band play the Muppet Show theme and have Kermit sing some songs. And they wanted him to do, of course, Rainbow Connection. And Karen Falk was on the call. Karen Falk, again, with the Jim Henson Company, threw my name out there as, well, Lucas has Kermit's banjo. There's a banjo person for Kermit if you need that. And so they reached out and they said, would you be in the area during this time? And I was like, I will be in the area. Because I'd already heard about it. The thing sold out. It's 1,000 seats only, sold out immediately. And I just wanted to go and be there. And they said, would you play banjo for me? I was like, sure. So I'm thinking like, I'll just sit in the pit. I'll do whatever. And when I get there, Michael Steinbach, the producer with the Muppets, and Matt were like, here's what we're thinking. Kermit's going to say, I want to sing a song for you, but I don't have my banjo. Is there a banjo player in the house? And you're just going to walk out on stage and Kermit will talk with you and then you guys will play. And I'm like, well, what? Suddenly I'm this character now in Kermit's world. And so I don't know if they'll ever release it someday, but there's a couple clips that kind of came out of it. Kermit's like, I'd love to sing a song for you, but is there a banjo player in the house? And she says, we actually invited your friend from Oklahoma. He's like, oh yeah, Lucas. So I walk out and I'm just giddy. And Heather,
amazing.
And Heather Hinson and Karen Falk and Craig Shemin, these friends I had made through the Jim Henson legacy and just the world of Jim Henson, were in the audience. And I my mind was blown. And the front 2 rows were only children. The dean only wanted kids to sit on the front.
Yeah.
And Matt talked a lot about Jim's legacy and performing and stuff. And then Kermit talked a whole lot about those things. And it was funny and it was heartfelt and it was great and creative and spontaneous. And then I had to go out and not mess it all up. So I go out there and we do a bit where like Kermit's like, hey, Lucas, you do that famous banjo song? I was like, oh, yeah, I think I know the one you're talking about. And so I start playing AC/DC Back in Black. He's like, no, the other one. I was like, oh, right, I'm sorry. And I start playing Sweet Home Alabama. And he's like, no, Lucas. And so Kermit does the freak out thing, like, he's waving his arms like I'm Fozzie. I was like, he's like, I mean, one of my songs. I was like, oh, one of your songs. Like, yeah. So I played So It's Not Easy Being Green. And he sang it. And it was so special and cool. And I got to give him a hug, and I just couldn't get off the stage. I kept shaking his hand and stuff. He's like, okay, Lucas, get off the stage, Lucas. So I tell people, like, that's what I want played at my funeral, because I'll be dead and they can't sue me. But I want to play that clip where Kermit says, all right, thank you, Lucas. Get off the stage, Lucas. That's it. Kermit the Frog throwing shade at me in front of Willie Nelson and telling me to get off the stage. So that was really special. And then at the end, we came out and did Rainbow Connection, and the whole group sang, and it was beautiful. That clip was there, too. And then Kermit went back and did their commencement. They actually called it Kermincement because Kermit was their big speaker at the end of the year in 2025. The spring, he was the speaker there, and they used the same track, some of the same track that we recorded initially with my father-in-law who had passed since then. So it's really special for me, not just that I get to do it, but that my good friend and my father-in-law and my wife's dad was so instrumental, literally, in helping me do these things.
Yeah.
And so that's part of the legacy. And so that same recording is what you hear if you get a Kermit Hallmark ornament this year. The new Kermit Hallmark ornament plays, and it sounds eerily like my banjo. So it's kind of insane to think about that.
How special.
You never know. And that's why I tell people, like, you never know how you'll use your talent. And my dream was always to work for Jim Henson. When I was a kid, I decided I want to, and then he died when I was 9. And I was heartbroken because I thought, well, is Kermit even going to be around when I'm an adult?
Yeah.
And I'm not quite an adult yet, but he's still around, and I get to play there, and it's pretty cool. It's really cool to be I say I'm a footnote in the Kermit's world, a flipper note. I don't consider myself anything officially with the company or anything like that, but I've got to play in that ballpark with them some, and it's very special. And every once in a while I'll get asked to come and do something else. And there is, I can't be specific about it, but in the 50th anniversary of the Muppet Show that's coming February 4th, depending on when this airs, you might see a little Easter egg or hear a little bit of banjo in it. So my mind is blown that I get to say that. So yeah, maybe we can talk again after that episode comes out.
I hope so. Lucas, this has been so fascinating, so absolutely fascinating. And I still have a long list of questions because we haven't touched on the parts of your career that intersect with mine.
Right.
We'll have to do that at a later date. So I have to right now wrap it up because they need the scene shop needs to get back to work here at Carpenter Square Theater. And as long as we're recording, they can't work. And so they take precedent.
Understood. It would have created a little bit of human interest, though, if you just heard like buzz saws and stuff and hammers.
Yeah.
Like, oh no, Disney's coming for him. Shut up, Lucas.
Lucas Ross, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. We will continue this at a later date. I want to thank Carpenter Square Theater for sponsoring This Town OKC. We've been recording in the rehearsal studio here at Carpenter Square. This Town OKC is edited by Fred O. Bishop. I'm Rick Allen Lippert. This has been a Lippert Media production.